The competition is in full swing at the Asian Winter Games in northeast China's Harbin. And in the spotlight are not just the winter sports powerhouses, but those hailing from nations without snow. About two-thirds of the record 35 delegations at this year's Games are from tropical and desert climate nations, including the island state of Singapore. Lauren Ong finds out what it takes for these athletes to compete at the top level.
Past midnight and amid Singapore's monsoon downpours, alpine skier Faiz Basha used to skate for hours at the National Stadium, the only time and way he could train in winterless Singapore, as he juggled mandatory national service and his dream of representing the tropical island nation on the slopes.
This was the only way that I could maintain the level that I had. I knew that if I wasn't going to ski for 2 years, that I would lose a lot of ability.
Faiz became Singapore's first national alpine skier in 2021. 4 years on and having completed national service, the 22-year-old is back on the ski slopes, flying the country's flag at the Asian Winter Games in Harbin. A long journey from the time he first picked up the sport while growing up in Switzerland and competing in international races to gain experience.
So I always get a lot of questions like, oh, how do you train? How do you do all this when, Singapore has no slopes at all? But for me, I find it as a point of pride that even though we don't have all of these facilities, that I can still be able to reach the level that I've reached.
It is not without sacrifices. The Singaporean has spent most of his time away from home. He is studying mechanical engineering in Scotland, where he secured a sports scholarship 2 years ago, allowing him to be nearer to the European slopes.
What often happens is that Singapore is sort of like my halfway house between the northern and the southern hemisphere seasons. So whenever there's no snow, because there's a small period in between the seasons where there's no snow, then I'll be back in Singapore. Probably just taking a break.
But beyond the right environment, finding the right expertise has also been key. For many of the Singapore's Winter Games athletes, that knowledge was imported from China.
这6年呢，新加坡的成绩都挺好的。他们从19年亚冬会完了东南亚运动会都拿到了金牌。然后新加坡的滑冰进度非常好。他们接下来2年，孩子们他们有新的冰场。 然后希望领导多多支持他们给他们更多的帮助。
Team Singapore's chef de mission, Feng Tianwei, a 3-time table tennis Olympic medalist, acknowledged that there are challenges for a country like Singapore to excel in winter sports.
所以我们还是想了很多办法，经过各种的努力，去希望他们出国参加训练，去参加比赛，这样能够保证他们更多的时间能够投入到冰雪这个项目当中，然后也能有更多的机会去参加比赛。
我宣布，哈尔滨第9届亚洲冬季运动会开幕。
China's hosting of the Asian Winter Games comes after it held the Winter Olympics in Beijing in 2022. Chinese President Xi Jinping opened the Games in Harbin and called for Asia to work together in developing winter sports in the region. China as host has been actively positioning itself as a champion to elevate the status of winter sports in Asia, a field historically dominated by Western nations. While the region has been making strides, most recently at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, where big names emerged like China's Eileen Gu, who took home 2 Olympic gold and 1 silver. The winter sports abilities of Asia's desert and tropical nations will be on full display, but the next edition is hosted by Saudi Arabia in 2029. Lauren Ong, CNA, Harbin.